Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Two Therapists Walk Into a Podcast. I'm Robin Green, an LCSW in Tucson, Arizona.
And I'm Stephanie Edsel, an LCSW here in Salt Lake City, Utah.
We are in Series 10, All Dependencies, and we are in our second to last episode of this series.
Yes, we are. And last week, we talked about codependency, about love, and whether the frame we hand people for loving someone through something hard was actually fair. This week, we're going bigger. We're looking at the water we've all been swimming in.
Right? Or where did the story come from? And who does it really serve? So let's take a moment to land. Take a breath wherever you are if it feels comfortable. Feel where you are, maybe what's under your feet, or whatever's holding you up right now. Allow yourself to notice what you've been carrying today. Not really to sort it out, just to feel the weight of it. Because if you notice, a lot of what we carry, we didn't really choose. Some of it was handed to us by our families, and some of it by something much bigger. The culture that we were born into, the air we've been breathing since before we had words for any of it. And can we notice that we are not just a person? We are people inside a particular moment in history, a particular culture, and even a particular set of inherited stories. And today, we are looking at all of that together. One breath, and we will begin.
The word codependency, the diagnosis, the self-help industry that grew up around it, all of it was born in a very specific moment. Western individualist. Late 20th century America, and this does matter because, as I said before, the water we swim in, this is going to be shaping what we call normal, basically, what the baseline is. It's healthy, and what we decide to also call disordered.
The story our culture tells about psychological health goes something like this. A healthy person is autonomous, self-sufficient, emotionally regulated, without much help from anyone else. They don't need too much at all.
Sounds delightful. Quite, right? It's awfully reasonable, really, until you hold it up against almost every other way humans have ever organized themselves. Most of human history understands health as fundamentally relational. Interdependence isn't a problem to solve. It's the architecture of a life. In many cultures, the idea that a person should be primarily self-sufficient would read as a kind of poverty, not something to aspire to. It's not a flex.
So when we take a framework built inside one very particular story about what a person should be and apply it as though it's universal, I really don't feel like, and I really don't think that we're doing science. We're really dressing up one culture's values in a white coat and calling it a diagnosis.
I couldn't agree more. And the people who get caught in that gap, the ones that come from cultures or families where interdependence is the value, where taking care of each other is just what you do, those people walk into a therapy room and get told they're enmeshed, codependent, that their way of being in relationship is basically a disorder.
Yeah. Ugh. And when actually what they are is not Western enough for the diagnostic criteria. And when we all pull at that thread, who gets pathologized? We can't avoid gender because it is not random. It has never really been random.
No. The codependency literature historically, let's just say it's been directed at women, at partners, at caregivers, the people doing the relational labor, the emotional labor, the invisible work of keeping families and relationships functioning. It's all the stuff that's kind of going on behind the scenes.
And those are the very qualities our culture assigned to women. That attunement, the self-sacrifice, reading the room, those became the symptom list, when they showed up clinically. We took the job description and really called it a pathology.
It's wild.
So very.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's just like it's wild. And many of these women were doing exactly what they had been socialized to do since childhood. What had been rewarded? What had been required for belonging? Some were also genuinely in pain. So both things are true. If you know me, I love saying that. But the diagnosis didn't make the distinction. It just handed them one more way that they were doing it wrong.
And caregiving labor, more broadly, is work our society systemically devalues. The people doing the most relational holding are often the least resourced, the least acknowledged, and honestly the most likely to end up in a therapy room being told they have a problem with boundaries.
When the actual problem is that no one has been taking care of them, that a system has been extracting from them without return, and the clinical response is to ask them to give less rather than to ask what they've been given.
Right? Yeah. And really, that's asking someone to be more efficient about being depleted.
I agree. We can't talk about who gets pathologized, by the way, without naming race as well. The codependency framework, just like most of Western psychology, was built by and largely for white middle class populations. The values baked into it, autonomy, individuation, emotional self-sufficiency, are not neutral. They never were.
Right? And then in collectivist cultures, many indigenous communities, many communities of color, identity isn't understood as something separate from relationship. It's inherently communal. And so the question of where do I end and you begin wouldn't even register as meaningful. And then when clinicians who haven't looked at their own assumptions then encounter those frameworks, again, they call it pathology or think that something is wrong with them because that's not the way they do it.
Yeah. It's like their baseline or their frame, of reference, which is why relational cultural theory matters a lot here. Jean Baker Miller and her colleagues at the Stone Center in Wellesley built an entire framework around the idea that growth happens in connection. That isolation is the wound, not dependence. And that a lot of what we're calling disorder in individuals is actually what happens when people have been chronically without relationships that are safe enough, mutual enough, and real enough.
So instead of asking what is wrong with this person, the question might be better framed, what has this person been without? Then when you ask it that way, I think everything starts to make sense. Something lifts, something clicks.
All right, so when we strip all of that away, what does healthy dependency actually look like?
It looks like being able to need someone and say so without apologizing for it, without immediately calculating what you owe them for receiving it. It looks like letting care actually land instead of deflecting it before it can reach you.
None of that is possible without relationships that are safe enough to hold it, which is not a given For a lot of people, that kind of safety has simply never been an offer.
Right. So then essentially, when someone can't ask for what they need, can't receive care, can't let anyone see them struggling, that's really not a flaw. That's what I like to say too. That's their relational history really being honest. And the work isn't to tell them to need less, it's really to build enough safety that needing feels survivable again.
This coping skill for the week is a pretty cool one. It's called coming back to what's yours.
Okay, so tell me about what that means.
We've been swimming in cultural messages about who we should be in relationship for so long that most of us have genuinely lost track of what we actually know to be true about our own needs underneath the conditioning, underneath the version of ourselves that learned to be acceptable.
It definitely does get buried underneath a lot of that noise.
It does. So we want you to find a quiet moment and ask yourself one question. Not the performed answer, the real one. What do I actually need in my relationships right now? The answer that's been sitting quietly underneath everything else.
Right, and it might feel unfamiliar. Maybe like you're not supposed to know that or want that, and you might feel guilty. That might come up too.
That is the discomfort, though, in that cultural water. That's where the conditioning lives, right at the edge of what you're allowed to want. And when you find the real answer, even if it's small, even if it feels like too much, let it be real. Don't make it immediately about whether you deserve it. Just let it exist as something true that belongs to you.
And that's where that return can begin. With something really true that's always been yours.
And as usual, here's our nervous system nugget. The nervous system doesn't exist above culture, observing it from a safe distance. It lives inside it. It gets shaped by it from the very beginning.
Right. From early on, our nervous systems are in constant conversation with the world around us, scanning for safety, learning the unspoken rules of the relational world that we were born into. Porges calls this neuroception. And culture is part of that scan. The messages we absorb about whether it's safe to need, safe to ask, safe to take up space, those get encoded the same way everything else does. By repetition, by what happened when you reached out, and then by consequence too. So we adapt.
I like that. That's great. Notice when someone grows up in a family or a culture that treats needing as weakness or requires relational self-erasure in order to maintain belonging, the nervous system encodes that, not as a belief, as a bodily knowing, a set of reflexes that operate below conscious choice.
Which is why you can know intellectually that it's okay to need people and still find yourself unable to ask when it actually matters. Still find your body bracing when someone asks how you're doing because the nervous system is running an old calculation. Is it safe to answer that honestly?
But that's not a mindset problem. Remember, that's the nervous system doing what it was trained to do by the relational and cultural world it grew up in, which includes everything we've been talking about today.
And something else we've said, the path forward isn't to think your way out of it. We can't think our way out of these. It's to have enough new experiences, enough moments of reaching out and actually being met, those corrective experiences, that the nervous system starts to revise what it knows. Safety isn't a concept it responds to. It's an experience. It has to happen in the body before the body believes it. Probably many times.
I would agree. Here's our reflection questions for the week.
First, what messages did you absorb from your family, your community, your culture about what it means to need people? Where did these messages come from? And how long have you been carrying them?
Second, think about the caregiving labor in your life. The emotional work, the relational holding, the invisible effort. Is it mutual? Is it seen? Is it something you choose or something you stepped into because no one else was going to?
Oof. And third,
That was heavy.
third, what would it actually feel like in your body, to need people and have that be met without conditions? Not managed, not apologized for, just really met and held. So next week is our last episode in this series, and it's the one we've been moving toward kind of this whole time. We're coming home to self-abandonment through a parts lens, what return looks like, and why the end of this series really isn't a solution. It's one of our favorite things. It's orientation.
And remember, healing isn't linear, and we're here for the ride. This podcast is for educational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for therapy, medical care, or professional advice.
Listening to this podcast or this episode does not create a therapeutic, clinical, or professional relationship with us.
If you're experiencing distress, physical symptoms, or emotional concerns that feel overwhelming, we both encourage you to seek support from a qualified healthcare or mental health professional.
And if you are in immediate danger or need urgent support, please contact local emergency services or a crisis line in your area.